Good morning, students. Hope you be fine at your respective places. Last time we have started the topic transpiration. And what do you mean by the transpiration? That it is the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant in the form of water vapors. That is the loss of water in the form of water vapors from the aerial parts of the plant. Now this transpiration जो हमने देखे it is different types. हमने कल पढ़ा that it is the cuticular transpiration, then it is a lenticular transpiration, फिर हमने पढ़ा third that is the stomatal transpiration, and we have discussed that about 95 to 99% of transpiration that takes place by means of the stomata. Now this stomata, it is a pore like this, is a small pore-like structure which opens and closes. When it opens, the exchange of gases takes place. When it closes, no exchange of gases takes place. Now, what is the mechanism of this opening and closing of this stomata? For this, various theories have been put forth to understand this mechanism of opening and closing of stomata, but at the present time what we will see, we have got a very important, very best, very good, अगर हम बात कर लेंगे या मॉडर्न हमारे पास एक थ्योरी है that is called as active potassium theory, and that theory was given by Leavitt in the year 1974. This is a very important theory जो हमारी मॉडर्न थ्योरी है, जिससे हम आसानी के साथ समझ सकते हैं कि हाउ दिस स्टोमेटा ओपन एंड हाउ दिस स्टोमेटा क्लोज. नाउ की पॉइंट्स अगर हम बात करेंगे इस थ्योरी की, व्हाट आर द की पॉइंट्स ऑफ दिस थ्योरी इज व्हेन स्टोमेटा ओपन्स. एक पॉइंट इसका है व्हेन स्टोमेटा ओपन्स, potassium ions enters the god cells. Potassium ions, they enters the god cells, and from the god cell enters the god cells from subsidiary cells. And by this stomata opens. की पॉइंट एक है कि पोटेशियम आयन्स दे एंटर्स द गॉड सेल्स फ्रॉम सब्सिडियरी सेल्स एंड स्टोमेटा ओपन्स, एंड फॉर दिस व्हाट वी विल सी देयर इज द व्हाट वी विल सी it is active movement, so energy is required, that is ATP is required. When potassium ions they comes out of the god cells, stomata close, comes out of god cells. When this potassium ions they comes out of the god cells, what we will see, stomata close. So when the stomata they enter into the god cells, stomata open, and when this potassium ions enters into the god cells, stomata open, and when this potassium ion leaves the god cells, what we will see, stomata close. Also ये हुआ एक पॉइंट. दूसरा पॉइंट हमको ये भी पता है कि दैट दी स्टोमेटा दे ओपन ड्यूरिंग द डे टाइम and it is the active process, and the stomata they close during the what we call as this night, and it is a passive process. It is a passive go during when the stomata close, no ATP is required, no energy is required, लेकिन for the opening of stomata we need this energy. Majority of the stomata they open during the day and they close during the night, but there are some exceptional cases where we will see that the stomata they open during the night and they close during the they open during the night and they close during the day. Now अब जो ATP हमारे को ज़रूरत पड़ता है फॉर दिस एक्टिव ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑफ पोटेशियम आयन्स, क्योंकि हमारी जो थ्योरी है इट इज़ मेनली इट राउंड्स अराउंड दिस पोटेशियम आयन. वी हैव गॉट टू सोर्सेज ऑफ ATP. फर्स्ट वन दैट इज mitochondria. These are the two sources of ATP. फर्स्ट वन इज माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. ड्यूरिंग माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया जो है इट ऑल्सो सिंथेसाइजेज दिस एटीपी बाय द एक्शन ऑफ oxidative phosphorylation. By the action of oxidative phosphorylation, and this oxidative phosphorylation is the production of ATP in presence of oxygen. So we have got one source is the mitochondria. This mitochondria, it synthesizes the ATP by the action of oxidative phosphorylation, and this oxidative phosphorylation is simply the synthesis of ATP in presence of oxygen. Second जो हमारे पास source है, that is chloroplast. This chloroplast, it also synthesizes ATP by cyclic phosphorylation. And this cyclic phosphorylation जो हम बात कर लेंगे, it makes the use of solar energy, it makes the use of the light energy. Now we have got two sources of ATP. First one is the mitochondria, second one is the chloroplast, which proves that ATP level is high in God cells during daytime. So this proves that जो मैंने कहा कि these two sources of ATP which proves that ATP level is high in God cells during what we call as a data. क्योंकि अगर हम गॉड सेल्स की बात करेंगे वहाँ पर क्लोरोफिल भी मौजूद होता है, वहाँ पर क्लोरोप्लास्ट्स दे आर प्रेजेंट. दीज आर द only epidermal cells which carry on the process of photosynthesis. Now a pump continues between these God cells and these subsidiary cells. A pump जो हम कहेंगे it continues between the एक pump एक्ट हो जाता है between these God cells and these subsidiary cells. This pump is called as hydrogen, या हम कहेंगे potassium hydrogen pump. And this pump क्या बोलता है? Potassium hydrogen pump. In this what we will see, potassium is pumped into the God cell and hydrogen is pumped out of the God cell. So a pump जो है it continues between the God cell and this subsidiary cell in which potassium is pumped into the God cell and the hydrogen is pumped out of the God cell. What happens by this when potassium जो है it is pumped into the God cell, जो pH होता है God cell it increases and it may reach up to 7.5 during daytime. At this high pH जो मैंने कहा 7.5, what happens, जो starch होता है which is a 6 carbon compound, it gets converted into the 3 carbon compound. What happens to this starch? It first gets converted into phosphoglyceric acid. Then this phosphoglyceric acid in presence of the enzyme carboxylase into the phosphoenol pyruvic acid, which is simply called as PEP. This is the 6 carbon compound and this is the 3 carbon compound. So we at this high pH, that is the pH of about 7.5, जो starch God cell में होता है it gets converted into the 3 carbon compound and the reaction is this. Starch gets converted into phosphoglyceric acid and this phosphoglyceric acid it gets converted into the phosphoenol pyruvic acid which are 3 carbon compound. Now this PEP it combines with this carbon dioxide and it forms the what we call as the 4 carbon compound. The 3 come from the oxaloacetic acid, acetic acid, which is OAA, that is the 4-carbon compound, and this takes place in presence of PEP, carboxylase, which is called as PEPCO. This PEP, it combines with the carbon dioxide to form the oxaloacetic acid, which is the 4-carbon compound. In presence of the PEP carboxylase, which is simply called as the PEPCO, and this PEPCO is active during the blue light of the sun. This PEPCO is active during the blue light of the sun, and this blue light is very much essential, very much important for the stomata opening. Now, this oxaloacetic acid, it reacts with NADPH2 to form the malic acid plus NADP. This oxaloacetic, it reacts with it combines with the NADPH2 to form malic acid plus NADP. Now, this malic acid in the God cell, it disintegrates, it breaks down, it dissociates to form H positive ion plus what we will see malate ion. Now, this hydrogen ion, it comes out of the God cell, and the potassium ions, they enter into the God cell. Now, this hydrogen ion, it comes out of the God cell, and the potassium ion, they enters into the God cell from this subsidiary cell. So what happens to this malate ion? Malate ion, now hydrogen ion has come out, in its place have taken the potassium ion, it becomes the potassium malate. It becomes the potassium malate, and this potassium malate is osmotically very active compound. This potassium malate is osmotically very much important compound. It, what we will see, increases the osmotic pressure of God cells, and what we will see, जो osmotic pressure of subsidiary cells वो decrease हो जाता है, वो decrease, that decreases. This potassium malate, it is very much osmotically active, and it increases the osmotic pressure of, it decreases the increases the osmotic pressure of God cells, and it decreases the osmotic pressure of subsidiary cells. Now, as per rule, water flows from low osmotic pressure to high osmotic pressure, so water will move from subsidiary cells into the God cells, and the God cells will become turgid. वहां पर turgor pressure ज्यादा हो जाएगा, and this stomata will open. Now this stomata, it opens. Now, why do the stomata close at night? एक और, now the night, हमने ये कहा, पहले कहा है कि stomata जो है, they open during the day and they close during the night. अब जो रात में वट एवर द प्रोसेसेस दे आर टेकिंग प्लेस ड्यूरिंग द डे, उनका रिवर्स हो जाता है रात को. वट एवर द प्रोसेसेस दैट आर टेकिंग प्लेस ड्यूरिंग द डे, उनका रिवर्स हो जाता है, एंड दैट रिवर्स ऑर्डर टेक्स प्लेस एट द नाइट. नाउ एट नाइट, अगर हम नाइट की बात करेंगे, ATP is not required, ATP is not available, ATP is not required. So जो हम ये कहेंगे, पोटेशियम हाइड्रोजन पंप जो है, it will not participate actively, but it acts passively. So no ATP is required when this pump जो है, it will not participate actively, so this stomata जो है, it closes. At night, potassium ion जो है, they come out of the God cells. They come, जो the potassium ions, they come out of the God cells passively, and stomata closes. what we will see, hydrogen ions, they move into the God cells from subsidiary cells. अब उसमें क्या जाए, when the hydrogen ions, H positive ions, when they move into the God cells, जब वो God cell के अंदर चले जाते हैं, उसमें हम क्या देखते हैं, इसका जो pH पहले बहुत ही हाई होता था अप टू 7.5, वो डिक्रीज हो जाता है. अब उससे क्या हो जाता है, जो पोटेशियम मैलेट जो था, it starts disintegrating, it starts dissociating, it starts disintegration हो जाता है. So what happened to the potassium malate? Potassium malate, when it disintegrates, what happens? Potassium ions plus malate ions are released. Now these potassium ions, they come out of the God cell and the hydrogen ions enters the God cell. Now this malate ion, it combines with the hydrogen ion and it forms the malic acid. क्या बना लेता है, malic acid को बना लेता है. Now in the God cells, glyoxysomes are present, and in them glyoxysomes में क्या हो जाता है, एक साइकिल हो जाता है, that is called as glyoxylate cycle occurs. glyoxylate cycle occurs. इससे क्या हो जाता है, जो मैलिक एसिड जो है, when it comes under this, when it goes through this glyoxylate cycle, what happens, starch is formed. Starch is formed. Now we know that this starch जो है, it has got very low OP, osmotic pressure, and we also know the water जो है, it moves from low osmotic pressure to the high osmotic pressure. So at night जो water है, it will come out of the God cell. Because of this, what will happen, जो this, what we will see, this stomata वो क्लोज हो जाएगा, एंड दिस गॉड सेल दे विल बिकम फ्लैसिड, वो फ्लैसिड हो जाएंगे, एंड सो स्टोमेटा क्लोज. नाउ आयन एक्सचेंज आल्सो टेक्स प्लेस. During daytime, what we will see, ion exchange takes place between the God cells and the subsidiary cells. From subsidiary cells, potassium ions, they move towards the God cells, and hydrogen ions, they move out of the God cell into the subsidiary cell. And whole of this process जो था, it takes place actively. That means energy is required for that process. But at the night also, what we will see, potassium ions, they come out, and the hydrogen ions, they move into the God cells. But no, what we will see, ATP is required, but जो वहाँ पर हम जो movement देखते हैं, that is passive movement, that is not active movement. So what happens at night, जो potassium ions, when they move out of the God cells and the hydrogen ions move in the God cell, that movement takes place passively, simply by the process of diffusion. Simply by the process of diffusion. और it क्वेश्चन पूछा भी जाता है इन बहुत सारे इन कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स में. या मैंने वो भी कहा कि when this what we will see, when the potassium ions, when they enters this God cell, उससे क्या हो जाता है, जो what we will see, जो pH जो होता है God cell का, it increase, और इसका हाई कितना हो जाता है, it increases up to this 7.5. ये ऐसे क्वेश्चंस है जो आमतौर पर पूछे जाते हैं, या ये भी पूछा जाता है by this what we will see at this high pH, जो 6 carbon compound, there's a star, it gets converted into the 3 carbon compound, which is the malic acid, which is the PEP, that is the phosphoenol pyruvic acid. And this phosphoenol pyruvic acid, it then gets converted in the 4 carbon compound, that is the oxaloacetic acid. Then this oxaloacetic acid, it gets converted into the malic acid. So this whole process continues, and we see जो stomata, it opens when the potassium ions enters into the God cell and the hydrogen ions comes out of the God cell. that takes place during daytime, and it is the whole process which takes place actively. Lekin at night, hydrogen ions they enter into the god cell, and the potassium ions move out of the god cell, and it is whole this process is a passive movement, and it simply takes with the help of this diffusion. So it was all about this, how this stomata opens and how the stomata closes, what is the mechanism of the stomata. We have simply studied the modern theory, a simple theory, that is the active potassium, what we will active potassium theory, which was given by the liver. This was all about today. Today we will further continue our topic. Until then, goodbye. God bless you. Thanks.